I need you to hate so I can use you for your energy.
This is Real Sales Talk. Real sales advice from real sales practitioners. Giving you tips on how to dominate your sales quota are your co-hosts, Sean Mitchell and Phil Keene.
What is going on, Real Sales Talk fam? Hope everyone is doing fantastic and having a great last week of August. Phil, how is your last week of August going? Is it hustle and bustle?
Well, it's been busy. Yeah, we're going after it. We want to make sure that give a shout out to anybody that's out in Texas right now, all the shit you're dealing with Hurricane Harvey. We're thinking about you, praying for you. That stuff is it's unimaginable thinking about all the things going on in your life right now. So we're thinking about you for sure. About that circumstance, my life is wonderful. So
Right.
things are good.
Context.
Yeah.
Cool. So let's dive into Tech Talk 41. Phil, what are you going to be talking about today?
So there's a pretty big acquisition in the tech space, and it'd be crazy not to talk about it. So Discover.org made a purchase of Ranking, and it's a really big deal. So Discover.org, who's probably best of breed when it comes to just data providers that are out there. And if you guys don't know anything about how they gather their data, they have about a 95% plus accuracy rate when it comes to the data that they have. So it's IT, marketing, and sales. They're kind of the areas that they work inside of. Have a firm or a part of their company that goes and verifies this data. So not only do they get the data in, they have people call or clean this list, clean emails, clean phone numbers, do all that to verify data that's bad data. So Discover.org built an amazing business model. Their CEO, Henry, is just an amazing guy. I met him, super humble, really good person. I think well-deserving of the success that he's seen so far. Ranking, who is another behemoth in the data space. So they've been around for such a long time. So this is a big deal. There's actually a cool article, and it's something I want to share with the audience as well. You guys. So if you go to the Discover.org blog, wrote a story about Ranking and Discover.org, and it's a pretty perspective. And if you just look at the first third paragraph, he says, "Hey, I remember the first time I heard of Ranking. I was in law school apartment and stumbled upon their website. I was $23,000 of college and law school debt. And I launched Discover.org, a company with no brand recognition, no financing, no real experience behind it. And Ranking was a real company. They had real executives and venture funding." Like, thinking about that world of him, and he goes in to tell a story of like what the last 10 years was like of going up against Ranking and now to the place where they've made the acquisition. It's an awesome story. And I think it's something to definitely be shared. We'll link to it as well inside of the notes so you guys can see it. But Discover.org, congratulations on the acquisition. Ranking, congratulations on the acquisition. That's a big deal. And it's going to mean a lot of cool things for the data space. I actually think it will help the data space as they grow and build out an even better business.
I don't have any experience with Discover.org. So do they sell directly to businesses, or do they kind of resell it or allow people to resell their data?
Yeah, so they sell directly B2B. So in most of their cases, I'm sure they probably OEM some places because they do have phenomenal data, and they pull data in from a couple different resources. I don't know what their algorithm looks like, but I know they built some stuff on their own proprietary side, and they test against other stuff. Like, I've heard a lot of things, but their data is top notch. I mean, it's expensive. So you got to know that going into it, but it's worth it every penny that you spend in it because the data is highly accurate. So if you're going after IT, or if you're going after marketing, or if you're going after the data is top notch. And actually check out, there's a free data thing. So if you click on their link, if you go to discoverorg.com, click on free data, and looks like you can get a I don't know how much free data they give you, but they can they give you some stuff to test out and maybe try out their data. And their data, from everything I've heard, is top notch.
Cool. Really interesting. Um,
What about Sean? So we got that. So you've been listening to podcasts. We've had a couple of things on, and we love to at least kind of summarize some stuff that you've heard. What are we listening to these days? What's new?
well, there's a few that I'm listening to, but one that really jumped out to me, and I thought, this is actually some really good, interesting feedback. I'm going to, here we go, iTunes. We had Chris Smith on the show a couple of times actually last month, or it was probably beginning of the month, beginning of August, if I remember correctly. We had him on as a guest, and we also had him on as TechTalk too. So he has a podcast where he essentially brings people into his team calls. So you get some insight into some of the things that he's covering in his company, Curator. And on this particular one, which would be 15, episode 15, I suppose, it's 13 trade show best practices. And we're heading into September. It's another busy season of trade shows. Typically, September, October are usually pretty intense with trade shows. And the stuff that he shares here, he's talking to his sales team and sharing some best practices. Some of them are more simple than others. Others are like, okay, yeah, this totally makes sense. Simple being one of the pieces of advice that he gives his sales team who is out is basically even though you're not on the clock, you're on the clock essentially. And he gives the advice of, while you're at the trade show, even in the evening times, you're on duty, you're on the clock, and you're working. And he's like, I don't have a problem with you, having some drinks, but don't come into the trade show booth the next morning smelling like alcohol. And he's like, if you need to have a buddy system, then take someone with you, and maybe one of you drinks one night and the other one watches out for you, or for everyone. So that would be like a real simple one. If those that are listening have been to trade shows, you kind of know, you probably know, hopefully not to go wild and crazy, even though maybe the people who are attending the trade shows are going wild and crazy. One of the other ones that at least stood out to me that I tend to have a tendency not to do, which is turn on an out of office and let people know that if they need something immediate, that they can reach people who are in the office. So that's 2 of the 13. The other 11 were really, really interesting as well. Like I said, some of them are more obvious than others, but really, really good ones. And I thought it was timely that this pops up around trade show season.
Yeah, Chris's episode was knockout. I mean, if you guys will go back to listen, it's episode 3 of season 8. I thought his content was golden. And I've started following him as well since he's been on our show. I didn't actually hear about him until you brought him up as a guest, and I thought I'd started doing research and started following some of his stuff. And I think he's top notch. I mean, he knows what he's talking about for sure.
Yeah, he knows his stuff. And I love that he's an analogy guy. And whenever he talks or teaches, he uses a lot of analogies, sports analogies. I forget the analogy he used in this one episode that I've just got done talking about. But he uses some really, really good analogies to kind of make things stick in people's head.
Yeah, I think he's super sharp. So definitely go. It's Calls with Chris Smith, right? Is the name of the podcast. So definitely go take a look at it. I'm definitely going to make sure I catch it on the morning drive in tomorrow as well.
Yeah, the nice thing about this is that they're short. I mean, they're 11, 15, 17, 18 minutes. So you can get through a lot of them. in a short amount of time. I'm even looking at another one, episode 8, 12 pro tips for outside sales. I don't think I've listened to that one. Episode 9, your best salespeople aren't salespeople. So some good and relevant ones. He also covers some marketing stuff and, of course, running a business. But I think it's really, really interesting stuff that he covers.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'll take a listen for sure.
Cool. So Phil, what do we have coming up here? We've just published Talia Wolf's episode, The Psychology Behind Why Buyers Buy. But maybe you can give our listeners some teasers of what is to come down the pipe.
Yeah, so we have that one. We also recorded an episode with Michelle Weinstein. We talked about the pitch queen, right? So we talked about making good pitches. And if anybody knows anything about her, so she pitched Shark Tank. She had been on a few other things. She had pitched Costco in her life, and it's kind of has a unique story, unique perspective. I thought she brought some pretty good perspective to the table for salespeople to digest and think about. But yeah, it was good content.
Awesome. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I thought and I believe she said that she pitched Shark Tank 3 different times. So interesting to try and understand, like get some insight into what that is like to actually pitch people who she said she only had 60 seconds.
Yeah. The process she went through to try to get on Shark Tank was pretty impressive. And we even went a little bit deeper on what do you do in your life? Like the daytime stuff, like where did you fail? Where did you mess up? And business. It was a good episode. If you guys haven't gone to listen to the Will Barron episode, I thought that was great as well. He's from the Salesman podcast. Learned a ton over all of his interviews, and I thought it was really insightful. Some of the stuff he brought to the table. Again, also really humble guest. Mm-hmm. He talks about some of the stuff where he's not going to. He admittedly said, "Hey, I'm not the best sales guy in the room, but I really enjoy learning about sales stuff." And his podcast is great, and it's very entertaining. So the Salesman podcast. I mean, Will Barron was a really strong guest, I thought.
Yeah, I liked what he had to share. And yeah, even though it wasn't on that one to ask him questions, it was very clear that he just had a humble approach.
Yeah, we've had a lot of episodes cranking out, and we have a couple more scheduled as well. So you guys should have a bunch of content to listen to on your morning drive or lunch break or whenever you guys listen to us, and we definitely appreciate it. So if you guys love the content, give us a review, give us a shout out, connect with us on LinkedIn. A lot of you guys have recently been connecting with us on LinkedIn and shooting us a message and thanking us for our content. It's truly humbling. So we appreciate it a ton.
Totally. Cool. Well, that concludes this episode of Tech Talk. And thanks for tuning in, Real Sales Talk fam. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for listening to Real Sales Talk. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Convertist. If you enjoyed this episode, go write a review on iTunes or any other podcasting platform.